time for our last fireside chat with our speaker, Celeste Kwan. Celeste has a strong passion for her Chinese community, especially when it comes to topics of well-being and housing. At real estate nonprofits and with the Lions Club, she has helped host panels and webinars in Chinese to inform and empower seniors in her communities and in Chinese neighborhoods. She has a strong belief that housing justice means language access, legal support, and outreach. Please join me in a warm round of applause for Celeste Kwan.
All right, Celeste, welcome.
Hello, everyone.
Now,
Hi, Francis.
always fun to see you on stage here. One thing I learned about you when I was working with you is that you are like really good with languages, right?
I know a couple, yeah.
Right? Yeah, okay. So, and you're very fluent with like, I would say probably, the Asian, the Chinese languages, right? So where does your language, your love of language come from? Like, where does your love of language and culture come from at such an early age?
Thank you so much for asking me that, Francis. And also, just thank you so much for being here. I'm really excited to share more about my cultural roots with everybody. I guess to put it very simply and plainly, my appreciation for my culture and my language stems from my family. I mean, growing up as a Chinese American in the Bay Area with a family of immigrants, I've always grown up watching, Chinese shows or eating Chinese food or just learning or speaking fluent Chinese with my family, specifically Cantonese. And these are all things that I still do to this day after 22 years of my life. And I know people might be wondering, well, Celeste, I feel like a lot of people juggle two or more cultures in their household. What makes your experience or my experience any different? Well, I would say that growing up, I realized that a lot of my classmates or my cousins, my family, my friends, I feel like as soon as they started school, they would kind of lose touch with their culture. And I'm not quite sure why that is, but I feel like a lot of my friends kind of lost their languages, or my cousins, for example. And it could be the fact that, maybe they felt this pressure to fit in with their friends. Maybe their families didn't see the point in really teaching them anymore because they wanted their kids to assimilate. But what I do know is the fact that my mom, she made a very intentional choice with me in teaching me Chinese. She knew that knowing a different language would open doors for me and create opportunities and allow me to exist in spaces comfortably that maybe other people might not be able to. And so I think, I feel very grateful, even though it was very intense. I think that even when I was a kid, she wouldn't let me drink water or eat food unless I asked for it in Chinese first. So yeah, thanks, Mom. But at least now I know Canto.
Fantastic. Okay, cool. So it sounds like your mom was very affluential and influential in your upbringing. Where would you say was your mom's views on where she would like you to have your place in society, and even potentially who you would want to marry?
Yeah, it's actually very paradoxical, I feel like. Growing up, my mom would really want me to learn Chinese, as I said, and she would work really hard to preserve my traditions for me. And so I think any person would naturally assume that my mom would want me to, you know, marry or be with a partner that shares similar cultural values as I do. But that is actually not the case. That assumption is completely wrong because I remember growing up, she would tell me that she'd prefer I marry a white person or somebody of Caucasian origins. And, I never really understood that. Hi, Mom. I would never really understand that. But I think it comes from a place that, as an immigrant, when she came here, when you come to America, you kind of assume that I feel like white people are always placed on this pedestal. You come to America, you see that everybody in power is of European origins, or they're seen as the more successful or the most or more powerful and wealthy demographic in America. And so I think that played a really big part in why she wanted me to marry into that kind of
Group. Yes.
Exactly. Thank you, Francis. But yeah, but personally, I feel like I want to maintain my sense of individuality, and I think like I will love whoever I love. And I think the biggest thing that I want people to take away from my talk today is that, throughout your life, you're going to come across so many people who are going to try to guide you and mentor you and teach you values that they hold true. But as a student, it's very important for you to maintain your own individuality and preserve the values that you hold true.
Okay. I love the fact that you're holding true to your values then. Why do you think we as a group are still struggling? Like, I don't know how many generations we've been here, but why are we still struggling as an ethnic group to find our voice and our place in America, even to the point where we're like, maybe we should just marry into them? Why are we even still struggling with this?
I think that as an ethnic group, we, as Asian Americans, you again are juggling several cultural values in your own home. Your Asian side, they're always emphasizing this importance on family and sacrifice. Meanwhile, American culture might, prioritize individualism and self-expression and independence, right?
Right.
And so I think for a lot of children, growing up in an Asian household, but also being born in America, everything within the home is kind of one way, and then everything outside of the home is another way. And I think that, creates a lot of struggle around identity. And it's really important that we can learn how to balance that out and, honoring both of our heritages and honoring both our backgrounds as people.
Okay. I love that. What do you think we can do as individuals and also as a group to really still hold on to the cultures that we hold dear, but also still be an actual viable, meaningful part of this country that's supposed to be a melting pot, but we are still struggling. But what can we do as a group to try to progress that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it comes down to choice. You have to realize that it's never an either or. You can go through life honoring both of the values that you grew up with. I think one way that I really balanced out my culture is the fact that, I was in Miss Asian Global. I think that the pageantry in general, I've always associated pageantry with my Asian side. I would hear about Miss Hong Kong or Miss Chinatown or Miss Philippines. And those are all things that I would really hear from my parents, or some things in my family. They would talk about pageants a lot back in the day because, well, I feel like they were super big in Asia. But me being in a pageant here in America with so many other Asian American women, I think that was a really perfect way of balancing out my culture. And even just joining nonprofits here in America that are, Asian based, like Chinese Real Estate Association in America, I think I was really able to balance it out that way as well. Working with professionals that, are operating here in America, but they also go throughout life with the values of, an Asian values and Asian culture.
I love the wisdom you have at such an early, young age, right? You have right now, and I have one more question for you that I feel like I'm going to dig out and really want to get your views on this. Is there a way for you to also, or for us, or for people to express their love of culture, their individuality, especially from an ethnic point of view, even through their work, not just personal choices, but how they also work professionally within the community, the impact they have, and examples they set for the next generation?
Oh, that's a beautiful question. I think that even professionally, you can still show your love for your culture. I think that, even you being here, helping all these Asian American women, Asian American people, I think that's a beautiful way of balancing it out, even here. Um, I think even professionally, you can do whatever you want to kind of be more involved in the community, and volunteering in the Lunar New Year parades that just happened, or, volunteering in Miss Asian Global or the pageants that happen here in the Bay Area. I think that's a really great way of doing so.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you. Um, I just want to say thank you again for setting an example. I'm so thankful that you stay true to your culture, you listen to your own heart and your own spirit, and you choose to basically do the path that you want to do, and still are proud of your culture and who you are. So thank you for being such an example.
Thank you, Francis.
Thank you.